Hi whiskey enthusiasts, it's Brett and I'm back with a whiskey review of the Glenlivet Nadurra Oloroso Cask Scotch. And this is something I've been wanting for quite a while and just recently came upon it on a shelf. This is a cask strength. It comes in at 60.3%. It is matured exclusively in first fill Oloroso sherry casks from Jerez, Spain. These are very highly sought after casks. The first fill lends a lot of flavor to this. You can see how dark this is. This is non-age statement. The Nadurras used to be 16-year age stated. That's recently been dropped, as has happened with many whiskeys in the last 2 or 3 years. And in most cases, I don't see a big drop-off in quality. I think that they are doing a fabulous job of blending that stuff in with their newer and older stuff so that the older expressions go further for more of us to enjoy. Let's be honest, the huge increase in whiskey enthusiasts in the world is pushing the manufacturers to their limits in creating enough to meet demand. So we're a little bit victims of our own success when it comes to some of the age statements going away on things. I'm going to pull out a little water here and set to the side because I may want it in this tasting with this starting out so high in proof. Let's see what I get on the nose of this. The fruits that hit you on the very beginning of the nose are very strong and very forward. And this is a dried fruit, not a fresh fruit. There's a strong raisin, some plum, maybe a little bit of cherry. Underneath those, there's a significant malt presence, and maybe just a tiny hint of a smoke. Just barely enough to notice. There's a little bit of a nut underneath, maybe a hazelnut. And then you get sort of a butter creaminess. As the fruit kind of fades to the background after you've smelled it a few times. Altogether, a rich and fully satisfying nose. Definitely in the top 20% of noses of the normal whiskeys that I taste. The sherry is right in your face on the palate. The hit of the sherry reminds me of the sherry Macallans in the beginning. You maintain a lot of that raisin and plum flavor. There's a sharp nuttiness, and then the spice hits. The spice is rather strong in the last part of the palate, and I would go towards a stronger spice like a clove. This is not a gentle spice. This is a spice that really hits you. There is a little bit of burn in the palate due to the proof. Let's see how it hits me on the second taste. That is just full and rich. The palate is deep. There's a little bit of licorice and pepper note that comes out in the last part of the palate. And as you go into the finish, when you swallow, you get a pretty good hit of the proof. In the proof, you mostly get the oak, the clove, and that buttery creaminess that I mentioned earlier in the nose. Let's get just a few drops of water into this and see what happens to it. This is non-chill filtered, so when you add water to it, it is possible you will drop down to the point where, depending on how much water you add, you may drop down to the point where you might get a little cloudiness in it. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. And that butter creaminess that I'm getting in the palate is likely partially due to the non-chill filtering, because the oils and stuff are still in it. So that's not a bad thing. You don't need to think that there's anything wrong with it. Here this winter, if you stick this in a car and it gets really cold, due to the proof, it probably wouldn't show unless it got super cold. But in your glass, if you're in a cold room, you could get a little bit of cloudiness. Oh yeah, the water really, really tamed this and brought things out. In addition to what I already mentioned, there's a tobacco, a light tobacco or leather note that comes out in the palate with just a little bit of water. You don't have nearly the burn, and it's way easier to enjoy all the pieces. There's a lot of... Someone's home, my dog's barking. There's an awful lot of more gentle spice that comes out with the addition of the water. You definitely get a few extra notes, and the burn is tamed quite a bit on the palate. Still, on the finish, the primary notes are that buttery creaminess and the clove. Now I get a little bit more cinnamon and just some of the general oak that you would typically get on a finish of this sort. It's very sherry forward. It's an absolute worthy whiskey to drink. I think this runs in most places in the 80s in America. A very nice whiskey, and it's going to go a long way for you because it really does improve a lot with a few drops of water, so you're going to stretch it out a little bit. If you're ready to move up into things that are above $75, this should be probably one of the ones you start with, not one of the ones you wait on. This is one of the better bottles in that price range, I think. So there you have it. Hope that was helpful. Go get you some whiskey. Have a good night.